Hello, friend. It's so wonderful to have you back in the garden with me today. The weather this afternoon is absolutely perfect. There's a gentle, warm breeze rustling through the leaves of the old oak tree, and the air smells deeply of sweet, damp earth after yesterday's rain. I've just brewed a fresh, steaming cup of chamomile tea, and I was really hoping you'd sit with me for a little while. As I was brushing the dark, rich compost off my hands just a moment ago, I realized how incredibly peaceful this space has finally become. But I have to confess, it wasn't always this quiet, and it wasn't always this joyful. In fact, if we were sitting here just a few years ago, you wouldn't hear the songbirds or the gentle hum of the bumblebees visiting the lavender. You would hear the deafening, sputtering roar of a gas-powered rototiller. For years, I absolutely dreaded the first week of spring. While my neighbours were eagerly dreaming of juicy heirloom tomatoes, crisp snap peas and fragrant basil, I was staring down a heavy metal beast in my gardening shed. I honestly thought I was doing everything perfectly right. Every single gardening book I read growing up, and every commercial on television told me the exact same thing. If you want a successful garden, you must forcefully work the land. We were taught that we had to break the earth, flip it, pulverize it, and churn it until the soil looked like fine, loose coffee grounds. So, I spent hours wrestling with that heavy machine, enduring the nauseating smell of exhaust fumes, the terrible noise, and the deep, throbbing ache in my lower back. And you know what my reward was for all of that back-breaking, exhausting labour? Weeds. Endless, suffocating oceans of weeds. Within just 2 weeks of planting my meticulously tilled, perfectly straight rows, the crabgrass and bindweed would return with an absolute vengeance. My beautifully fluffy soil would collapse into a hard, cracked crust after the first rain. I was exhausted, frustrated, and ready to give up on growing my own food. But then, I discovered a profound secret that completely shattered everything I thought I knew about horticulture. I threw a heavy tarp over my rototiller, and I honestly haven't touched it in 5 years. By the end of our time together today, you are going to know exactly how to build a beautiful, highly productive garden using nothing but cardboard and compost. We are going to explore the fascinating, magical science of the no-dig method, and I will show you why stepping back and doing less work actually produces significantly more food. Let's dig into the wonderful science of not digging. Before we can learn exactly how to build a thriving no-dig garden, we first have to unlearn generations of strict agricultural dogma. We need to look closely at why we started tilling in the first place, and why modern science now tells us it is actually the worst possible thing we can do for our soil. Just take a moment and picture a lush, ancient forest floor, or a pristine, untouched wild prairie. Nature doesn't own a rototiller. In these vibrant natural ecosystems, no one is ever coming through with a heavy steel shovel to flip the soil over. And yet, these environments produce staggering amounts of life year after year. Nature always builds soil from the top down. Let's start by gently busting myth number 1. The idea that tilling creates fluffy, healthy soil. For centuries, we firmly believed that delicate plant roots needed loose, completely pulverized soil to grow easily. But the truth is actually the exact opposite. Tilling causes severe, long-term compaction. When you till your garden, you are essentially hitting a bustling, microscopic underground city with an earthquake and a tornado simultaneously. According to soil scientists, truly healthy soil is made up of something called aggregates. These are tiny, beautiful clumps of soil particles that are bound together by natural organic glues into a breathable, sponge-like structure. These magical natural glues, primarily a wonderful protein called glomalin, are produced by microscopic fungi that live deep in the soil. Imagine tiny, glowing golden threads wrapping gently around bits of dirt, creating a spongy architecture that allows fresh oxygen and rainwater to trickle through perfectly. When a harsh tiller blade violently slices through the soil, it completely shreds these delicate fungal networks. Without the natural glue holding it all together, the pulverized soil particles simply collapse under the heavy weight of the very first spring rainstorm. The pore spaces are destroyed. Beneath the surface, the downward pressure of the machine creates a compacted clay layer called a plough pan. Now, let's move on to myth number 2, which is perhaps the most maddening myth of all: the belief that tilling kills weeds. We have always been taught to till in order to destroy the weeds that are currently growing, believing that we are giving ourselves a beautifully clean slate for the summer season. But the exhausting truth is that tilling is the ultimate weed planting mechanism. Every single square inch of your garden soil contains a hidden weed seed bank. These are thousands upon thousands of dormant, sleeping weed seeds that have been naturally deposited by the wind and wild birds over decades. They are buried deep down in the dark earth, where it is wonderfully cool. As long as those seeds stay buried in the dark, they cannot wake up. But when you run a rototiller through your garden beds, you are acting like a giant spoon, churning those deeply buried, sleeping seeds directly up to the surface. Suddenly, you expose them to the exact two things they have been desperately waiting for: a bright flash of warm sunlight and a fresh breath of oxygen. Every single time you till to kill one generation of pesky weeds, you are quite literally planting the next massive generation. By adopting the no-dig method and leaving the soil completely undisturbed, those millions of weed seeds stay peacefully buried and asleep forever. It is truly that simple. Finally, we arrive at myth number 3, the idea that bare soil is good soil. Traditional gardening aesthetics have, unfortunately, taught us to love the look of a neatly hoed garden, with expanses of completely bare, black earth sitting between rigidly spaced rows of crops. But in truth, bare soil is dead soil. In nature, the earth is never fully bare unless there has been a terrible catastrophe, like a landslide. Bare soil is entirely exposed to the harsh, baking UV rays of the summer sun, which sterilize the top layer and kill all of your beneficial microbes. It also allows precious moisture to evaporate instantly into the hot air, forcing you to water constantly. Furthermore, without a protective, comforting layer of organic mulch covering the earth, heavy spring raindrops act like thousands of tiny water bombs hitting the surface. They forcefully shatter the delicate soil structure, splashing mud and potential fungal diseases directly up onto the leaves of your fragile young plants. Modern soil health laboratories constantly stress that keeping the soil armored with a thick, cozy blanket of organic matter is absolutely paramount to preserving soil moisture and maintaining a thriving biological ecosystem. The earth needs to be warmly clothed and protected, just like we do. So, if we aren't using a noisy metal machine to fluff and loosen the soil, who exactly is doing the work? The magical answer lies in the billions of unpaid, microscopic workers living right beneath our feet. This beautiful, bustling community is known as the soil food web. When we fully embrace the no-dig method, we stop treating the soil like a dead, inert sponge that merely holds chemical fertilizers. Instead, we gently begin to treat it like a precious, living, breathing organism. We become the proud caretakers of a vast, subterranean world. Let's take a moment to meet this incredible crew of underground garden workers. First, we have the magnificent earthworms. I like to think of them as nature's gentle ploughs and heavy machinery. As these fat, happy worms move vertically and horizontally through the dark soil, seeking decaying leaves on the surface, they are doing all the hard work for you. They naturally create permanent, beautifully smooth tunnels that allow fresh oxygen to reach deep into the earth. During torrential summer rains, these tunnels act like perfect little drainage pipes, preventing your garden from flooding. And as they eat, their waste, known as worm castings, is left behind. This is nature's absolute perfect, biologically active fertilizer. Next, we have the mycorrhizal fungi, which I love to call the internet of the soil. It is absolutely fascinating to learn that up to 90% of all land plants form beautiful symbiotic partnerships with these delicate fungi. The fungi attach themselves to the tender plant roots and send out microscopic thread-like webs for yards in every single direction. They act as a massive extension of the plant's own root system, mining deeply for phosphorus and water in tight spaces roots could never reach. They carry these treasures back to the plant, trading them for sweet liquid carbon sugars. When we don't till, this vast underground internet thrives. And finally, we have the billions of microscopic bacteria, nematodes, and protozoa. They are the essential nutrient cyclers of our garden ecosystem. The bacteria tirelessly break down the rich organic matter we place on the surface. Then, predatory nematodes consume those bacteria, and the waste they excrete provides incredibly rich, readily available nitrogen directly to the root zones of your growing vegetables. When you use the no-dig method, you simply step out of the way. The worms do the tilling. The fungi do the fertilizing, the bacteria do the composting. You just get to sit back in the sunshine, harvest the sweet food, and take all the credit. The underlying philosophy of this movement is stunningly simple, yet completely transformative. Feed the soil biology from the top, and let the biology gently feed the plants. We do this by mimicking a serene forest floor. Let's get our hands dirty, shall we? I am going to show you exactly how to do this in your own backyard, using a specific, highly effective technique, affectionately known as Lasagna Gardening. It is a step-by-step process of layering organic materials right over your existing grass or weeds to create a deep, rich, instantly plantable garden bed. Let's walk through the recipe together. Step 1 is delightfully easy, and it is called the chop and drop. If you're looking to start a brand new garden bed over an old lawn or convert a frustrating weed patch, the very first rule is, do not pull the weeds. Remember, pulling them by the roots disturbs the soil and brings up new weed seeds. Instead, take a weed whacker, a scythe, or even your trusty lawnmower on its lowest setting, and simply scalp the entire area right down to the ground. Leave all of those chopped green leaves and grass clippings exactly where they fall. This fresh green material is high in nitrogen and will begin feeding the hungry soil microbes immediately. Step 2 is the absolute magic ingredient of the lasagna method: the cardboard smother. Directly over the top of your chopped weeds and grass, you are going to lay down a continuous, thick layer of plain, brown, unwaxed, corrugated cardboard. This cardboard acts as a temporary, completely biodegradable weed barrier. It blocks out absolutely all of the sunlight, effectively starving the grass and the aggressive weeds trapped below it. By the time the weeds completely die and their root systems slowly rot away into the earth, the cardboard itself will have been happily eaten by the earthworms, leaving a clean slate for your new vegetable roots. I do have a few very important pro tips for your cardboard layer. First, you must peel off all the plastic packing tape and shipping labels. Plastic does not decompose and will haunt your garden beds forever, so take a quiet moment to remove it while enjoying the breeze. Second, avoid glossy, brightly coloured or wax-coated boxes. You want plain, boring brown cardboard. Fun fact, the natural starch-based glue used to hold the corrugation together is basically a sweet dessert for earthworms. Finally, when laying your boxes down, you must overlap the edges by at least 6 to 8 inches. Weeds are incredibly relentless and will find any tiny gap to push through. Once you have all of your cardboard beautifully overlapped and securely in place, mimicking a wonderful brown patchwork quilt over your future garden, take your garden hose and give it a really thorough soaking. You want the cardboard to be dripping wet. This heavy watering helps the stiff boxes gently mould to the natural contours and dips of the ground beneath them. It also immediately jumpstarts the natural decomposition process, making it soft and inviting for the soil microbes waiting below. It is deeply satisfying to watch the dry cardboard soak up the cool water in the sun. Step 3 is adding the primary growing medium, which is the rich, dark compost layer. Directly on top of your completely soaked cardboard, you are going to spread a nice, thick layer of beautiful compost. This is the magical material where your new plant babies will actually grow their roots while the cardboard slowly breaks down. If you are building a brand new bed directly over aggressive turf grass, you'll want this compost layer to be about 4 to 6 inches deep. If you are just gently top-dressing an already established no-dig bed in the peaceful autumn months, you really only need to sprinkle on about 1 to 2 inches to refresh it. I highly recommend using a wonderful, diverse mix of compost if you can. Variety is the spice of life, and the same goes for feeding a healthy soil food web. You might mix some fluffy municipal green waste compost with rich, dark mushroom compost, and perhaps a bit of beautifully aged cow manure. And of course, the absolute holy grail is your own homemade compost, lovingly created from your kitchen scraps. The smell of finished, high-quality compost is truly intoxicating. It shouldn't smell sour or rotten at all. It should smell intensely earthy and sweet, exactly like a deep, clean forest floor just after a refreshing, warm spring rain. I know that purchasing 6 full inches of high-quality compost for a large garden space can feel quite expensive. If you are working on a tighter budget, please don't worry, there are wonderful workarounds. You can simply build thicker lasagna layers underneath the compost using entirely free organic materials. Just lay down your cardboard and then add a thick layer of crisp autumn leaves, followed by a layer of untreated green grass clippings. Finally, top all of that off with just 2 inches of your precious compost right at the surface, where your seeds will germinate. It works beautifully, saves money, and recycles nature's wonderful gifts. Step 4 is my absolute favourite part of the entire process. Planting time. The sheer beauty of the no-dig lasagna method is that you do not have to wait months for it to break down. You can plant your garden directly into it on the exact same afternoon you build it. If you are planting vibrant little seedlings, like sweet cherry tomatoes or crisp bell peppers, simply take your hand trowel and scoop out a little hollow in the soft compost on top of the cardboard. Nestle the young roots down into the dark compost, tuck them in gently like they are going to bed, and give them a good drink of water. They will happily establish immediately. If you are direct sowing tiny seeds, like crunchy orange carrots, spicy radishes, or delicate butterhead lettuce, the process is even more incredibly simple. Just use your finger to draw a shallow, neat little line down the length of the fluffy compost. Drop your little seeds gently into the trench and brush a bit of compost back over them to tuck them in. Because the dark, rich compost absorbs the sun's ambient heat so beautifully, it warms up wonderfully fast in the chilly spring mornings. It is always such a breathtaking thrill to walk out with your morning tea and see those first tiny, bright green leaves pushing up through the dark earth. Our final step, step 5, is applying the protective armour, which is the mulch. Once your delicate plants are lovingly tucked in, you must remember myth number 3. Bare soil is unhappy soil. We never want to leave that beautiful, life-giving compost exposed to the harsh, baking sun. So, we add a cosy layer of organic mulch around the bases of our growing plants. You can use soft, weed-free straw, beautifully shredded autumn leaves, or dried grass clippings. This mulch wonderfully regulates the soil temperature, keeping the delicate roots cool on sweltering July afternoons, and drastically reduces water evaporation, saving you so much time. So, you've done it. You've successfully built your very first no-dig bed. You laid out the cardboard quilt, spread the dark compost, planted your tiny seeds, and mulched them in snugly. What happens next? Why is this calm, peaceful method so vastly superior to the traditional back-breaking gardening we grew up with? Let me share the undeniable, scientifically proven benefits you will personally experience in your garden over the next few seasons. These are the magical moments that will make you fall deeply, irreversibly in love with working in partnership with nature. First and foremost, weed suppression becomes wonderfully effortless. Because you entirely stopped disturbing the deep soil, those millions of buried weed seeds stay peacefully asleep. Will your garden be completely weed-free forever? No, Mother Nature will always blow a few dandelion seeds in on the gentle breeze. However, because your compost surface is incredibly loose and airy, the few weeds that do sprout have absolutely nothing hard to anchor their roots into. You can genuinely pull a foot-tall weed out of a no-dig bed with just 2 fingers. Weeding transforms from an exhausting chore into a calm, 5-minute stroll with your morning coffee. The second massive benefit is drastic water conservation. As the summer sun blazes, saving water is a profound relief for any gardener. Tilled, bare soil acts very much like a hard, cracked dinner plate. Water simply runs right off the dusty surface. But your new no-dig soil acts like a deep, plush, organic sponge. The incredibly high concentration of organic matter from your compost, combined with the intact pore spaces created by the busy earthworms, holds massive amounts of soothing moisture. You will find yourself only needing to water once a week, while your tired neighbours are out with their heavy garden hoses every single evening. The third beautiful change is significantly increased disease resistance. In a calm, no-dig system, the massive diversity of beneficial microbes in your compost simply outcompetes the bad bacteria, giving your plants incredibly strong cell walls. But the fourth benefit might be the most profoundly inspiring of all. You actively become a climate hero. Plants pump a large percentage of liquid carbon down into their roots to feed their fungal friends. When you leave the soil undisturbed, that carbon stays safely locked away in the dark earth indefinitely. By simply embracing the quiet, no-dig method, you transform your garden into a beautiful carbon sink. You are actively helping heal the earth. Now, it is completely natural to have a few doubts or questions. Gardening is all about gently learning and experimenting. The absolute #1 question I get asked by skeptics is, Mira, I have terrible, heavy, sticky clay soil. I have to till it just to loosen it up, right? I completely understand the frustration. Heavy clay can feel like you need a jackhammer just to plant a single bulb. But tilling wet clay is the worst thing you can do. It will simply dry into concrete. Instead, build your no-dig lasagna directly on top of the hard clay. Over time, the decomposing compost will naturally cause the dense clay particles to open up perfectly. The second worry I often hear is about the cost of compost. Buying tiny plastic bags from the hardware store to cover a massive yard will drain your wallet quickly. You must think locally and buy in bulk. Call your local landscaping companies. Buying a big, beautiful dump truck load of bulk compost is dramatically cheaper. Also, check with your city. Many municipalities collect yard waste, compost it professionally, and give the rich soil back to residents for a tiny fraction of the cost, or sometimes completely for free. And remember, you don't have to convert your whole yard in one weekend. Start with just one bed and grow slowly. Another very common and understandable fear involves pests. People often ask, won't voles, mice, and slugs hide under the cardboard? In very damp climates, slugs might temporarily use the cardboard as a shady hiding spot. But remember, the cardboard melts away into the earth very quickly. As for voles, a healthy no-dig garden fosters a wonderfully balanced ecosystem. By creating a diverse natural habitat, you will inevitably attract the wonderful predators, like majestic owls, helpful garden snakes, and beneficial ground beetles, who will happily keep the pest populations in check for you. Nature has an incredible way of finding perfect balance. You might also be wondering if the cardboard itself is toxic. This is a very valid concern. Thankfully, modern manufacturing standards have largely alleviated these fears. The vast majority of plain brown corrugated cardboard produced today uses completely safe, water-based inks and non-toxic glues made from vegetable derivatives. Earthworms absolutely adore the starch-based glues. To be incredibly safe, just avoid glossy finishes, bleached white boxes, or cardboard with heavy coloured dyes. If you are still entirely opposed to cardboard, you can easily use a very thick 6-inch layer of overlapping autumn leaves to smother the weeds instead. Finally, what about the real monsters of the garden? Aggressive, spreading perennial weeds like bindweed or Bermuda grass are the final boss of the no-dig garden. A single layer of cardboard will not stop them. For these tough invaders, you need a slightly heavier approach. Scalp the area aggressively, then put down 2 thick layers of plain cardboard, overlapping the edges generously. Apply an extra thick layer of compost, about 8 inches deep. When a stubborn sprig inevitably finds its way through to the sunlight, just pluck it immediately. By diligently pulling the green growth, you exhaust the root's energy reserves, and it will eventually die out. As the sun begins to set here, casting that gorgeous, warm, golden hour glow over the towering sunflowers and the heavy clusters of cherry tomatoes, I can't help but reflect on my journey. When I look back at my early, frustrating years of traditional gardening, I see a profound misunderstanding of my role. I was taught that nature was an adversary and the rototiller was a weapon. But the no-dig method taught me that gardening isn't a battle. It is a beautiful, quiet partnership. We aren't just growing crisp vegetables. We are actively cultivating a living, breathing, subterranean ecosystem that, in turn, takes incredibly good, loving care of us. You genuinely do not need to break your back to grow beautiful, nourishing food for your family. Put the noisy machines away. Lay down some recycled cardboard, spread a fragrant layer of rich compost, and let the earthworms do the heavy lifting. Leave the soil in peace and just watch how vibrantly your garden thrives in return. It has been such a joy having you here in the garden with me today. I would absolutely love to hear what is currently growing in your own beautiful garden. Please let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed our quiet afternoon together, I invite you to subscribe, and as always, happy growing.